Tune in every Tuesday morning from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. for Faith Works with Pastor Jimmy Ellison. Pastor Ellison has the privilege of interviewing leaders in Newnan who are making a kingdom impact, modeling for our community that faith does indeed work. So don't miss an episode of Faith Works with Pastor Jimmy Ellison, Tuesday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., only on WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key.
Hey, I'm Jimmy Ellison. I'm the pastor here at Newnan City Church. I want to thank you. You'll find as you walk through that we focus on three areas primarily. One is worship, small groups, and local missions. And our purpose is transforming lives for Jesus' sake, helping individuals experience that transformation. And we use these three areas, worship, small groups, and local missions, to help individuals experience that. So you'll get a sense of who Newnan City Church is, and I hope that you'll come and worship with us soon. Take care, and God bless.
The views and opinions expressed during this broadcast do not necessarily reflect the beliefs of this radio station, its management, or its sponsors. Listeners are urged to use their own discernment to draw their own conclusions.
It's now time for Faith Works with Pastor Jimmy Ellison from Newnan City Church.
Good morning, Newnan. This is Jimmy Ellison. You're listening to Faith Works, where each week we have conversations with leaders in our community demonstrating that faith does indeed work. And this morning, I'm thrilled to have my buddies Drew Middlebrooks and returning for another week, Matt Morris with us today.
Let's do it again.
We're so excited to have you guys on the show. We were talking last week, Matt and I, and came up this idea of what constitutes a church, what is small church, and this whole movement of smaller venues and just smaller churches making an impact in communities throughout the country. And from that conversation, that led to we had a lunch this past week and invited Drew, and we said, why don't we do the show on that this week? And so that's kind of what prompted us all coming together. And so we're here today. And Drew, before we get rolling into our theme, tell us a little about you, man. Where are you from and the whole 9 yards?
Well, it's crazy. We kind of jumped into this thing super quick. You come in, you sit down, it's like, all right, we're live, we're doing this. So,
hey, Ron, isn't that how we like it?
Trying to mentally catch
like
up. Yeah, I have no advantage here. But yeah, I am from LaGrange, Georgia, born and raised. 28 years old. Doesn't seem like, I feel like I'm about 20.
And you had a birthday recent?
End of this month.
It's end of this month.
10/28/91.
All right.
Send me something.
What's your Cash App?
I'll post it.
Okay.
Yeah,
What's your what?
His Cash App.
It'll be linked to this.
Ketchup?
Cash App.
Cash App.
Yeah.
You know, I have. All right.
Sorry, Jimmy.
I'm sorry.
I apologize.
I'm the middle-aged white guy in the room.
I have a really bad draw sometimes, so it's probably
No.
It's probably
Cash App.
Anyway,
all right.
But yeah, born and raised in LaGrange, right down the road. Grew up, great family, great parents. I'm the oldest of three siblings.
Where did you grow up?
In LaGrange.
In LaGrange,
yeah,
okay.
I've been there the entire time.
Really? And
people always ask me, when did you move here? I said, I've been here the whole time.
The whole time. And where did you go to Troop or did you go to LaGrange High?
So I went to LaGrange Academy, which is
absolutely. I know
private
exactly.
school in LaGrange. So, and it was fun. It was a nice little small learning environment.
Mm-hmm,
and they let us kind of run amok and do whatever we wanted.
Sure.
I didn't mind that.
I bet.
So it was kind of like homeschooling.
I don't know. I know some of the folks at LaGrange Academy. No, it's not homeschooling. It's not.
It was fun, though. I enjoyed it. I'm thankful for it.
Tell me about your, where did you grow up? Which church did you grow up in?
So growing up as a kid, we went to church off and on, just kind of sat through it, probably a few times a year, but never was really plugged in anywhere. Definitely kind of had like a Christian household. And,
sure.
Definitely God was talked about and everything. But then I didn't really get into church on my own until I was about 17 or so in high school. Great friend of mine at the time was super plugged in at a local church, Faith Baptist over there. They do Judgment
Faith
Journey
Baptist.
and all that kind of stuff. Started inviting me to go there.
32,000 people.
Exactly.
Saved. Have you heard those commercials, Matt?
No, is that a real thing?
They take Halloween the weekends before Halloween. And Rod, weren't they a sponsor last year? And so they take Halloween and it turns into a haunted house experience that leads to a
Throne room experience.
yes.
Really?
It's like an end of times.
End of
type
times.
thing. So
It's
a
and
great
then,
thing.
and then all right, if you don't want to burn, you go over
Turn,
here.
turn or burn.
Yeah.
Airplanes crash.
Airplane, yeah,
Oh,
it's
awesome.
it's pretty dramatic. I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
there's
it's,
some-
it's
I'm
a-
definitely rededicating my life there.
There's some super talented people that put that on, and that's actually where.
I mean, it's a huge production.
Yeah, when
I was-
they literally have I mean, it's we're talking thousands of people who come to it. And anyway, it's kind of
But 32,000 people?
No, I don't know if it's 32,000, but
I mean, that's still
it's
incredible.
but it's
But
it's,
you're-
it's probably 15,000. I bet.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I was 20 years old, but I cut my teeth a lot learning how to do electrical and rigging and a lot of kind of stuff down there on the Judgment Journey Trail, and still super thankful for all those guys. So
Yeah,
I
sure.
learned a lot of stuff there.
I
for
bet.
sure.
I bet you did because it's a. I mean, probably the cast and the crew. I mean, you're talking 50 plus people. Is that
Oh,
right?
at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, bare bones, but it's definitely more
I
than
mean,
that.
it's a pretty big shindig.
I used to go to one. Is it kind of like, I think Eagles Landing in Stockbridge had
I
one?
know there's a Tribulation Trail.
Tribulation
that's modeled
Trail.
after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they stole the idea. Is that what you're telling me?
I will not be recorded as saying that, but I think the other one.
So
I
I
think the
need
other
it-
one existed first. Yeah.
Can we go to Judgment Journey together this year?
Absolutely. You gonna hold me?
Let's go.
When I get scared?
No, for real. I want to go.
We can go.
Okay.
For sure. I haven't been in a few years.
Hey, invite me.
You want to go too?
I think I want to go.
Let's go.
Okay,
Let's do
we'll,
it.
we'll figure it out.
For sure.
All right.
But yeah,
Our significant others will not want to go.
No, my wife won't, but she doesn't like scary stuff. But if it involves Jesus, she's probably down.
Yeah, it does. It does. Anyway, we digress. So you went to Faith Baptist.
yeah, started going there. Met the Lord there, got saved, gave my life to Jesus, and that is kind of where my church service sort of story began.
How did your parents receive that season of your life? So here you are, right? You're 17, so you're junior at this point, probably in school, and clearly there's a significant change that happens. How did your parents respond to that?
So, I mean, they were all for it, loved it. So it's kind of weird because I sat through a lot of church as a kid. I say a lot, but sat through more than most. Watched my brother and sister get baptized and saved at a young age.
Yeah.
And just never, I was always just, not that I didn't believe, but I never really wasn't a rebellious kid.
Yeah.
You know, and so I sat through a lot of church, and that kind of goes to show you that there's a lot of kids sitting in church that don't really fit the typical rebellious bill. They're not out there, you know, making all kinds of crazy bad decisions on the weekend. I mean, I was a good kid,
Yeah.
but just hadn't really believed in God in my own mind, but just really
was it an
hadn't.
emotional experience or more of a logical?
It was
AP?
more of I had never, in retrospect, I know it now, that I had never really had the gospel presented to me effectively, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
I definitely heard it. I know that I had heard it, but for whatever reason, it just never registered with me until that point in life. I think I thought it was more of like a formality, sort of, and I remember telling myself for a long time that it's like, oh, I don't have to walk down there and shake the preacher's hand, and I don't have to get baptized, which is all true. I mean, it's internal heart change, but I'd never really had it presented to me that well or that clear up until that time. So
That's great. That is great. So you finished LaGrange Academy, and what happened after LaGrange Academy?
we dabbled in college for like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah, and decided that was
That's
not.
a short dabble.
Yeah, it was long enough. Well, I was very efficient in learning that I didn't belong there.
You know, there's something to say for that.
Yeah.
There's something to say. Now, had you already paid for the full semester?
I was lucky enough. My angel of a mother paid for it. But yeah, it was just, I was in community college.
Yeah.
And it was just like
Wasn't
paid for
the
one,
right fit.
paid for one semester and decided. I think I actually got what they call like a withdrawal fail, when you don't show up enough times and you automatically fail. I think that's how it happened. So they quit for me. They told me that I had quit.
I understand.
I agree. That sounds like a good idea.
So did you say, I'm glad that you realized that I've quit?
Yes, and it's weird now, looking back. I remember a couple years ago when all of my friends who are the same age started graduating, and they're starting to get these like pretty heavy-hitting jobs, and I'm like, so that's what that would have been like. But I've never really wrestled with,
Maybe not.
yeah, yes and no. But I've always been confident in that
Yeah.
kind of decision. That's something I've never really wrestled with, and I knew it was just not the path for me.
Well,
So.
full disclosure for all those listening, Drew is, he works at Three Life, which is a great church down in LaGrange, and you at times hang out with us on Sunday nights
Absolutely.
at Noonan City,
I love doing
and you play. You're a musician.
So
So how did your love for music and what you do now?
I have never once in my life billed myself as a musician, ever. Because my whole life
Well, you're doing a good job faking it.
well, I appreciate it. I've always played piano since I was a kid.
Okay.
My mom played piano. We always had a piano in my house. I remember getting a little keyboard for Christmas, very young, like 5 years old.
Yeah.
So it's just something I've always loved. I love music, but I've always found, as an adult, I pretty quickly found myself kind of more on the production technical sides of music. So I'm always around music. I'm
Yeah.
always working with musicians, and but I think that both my parents love music, huge music fans. And I think growing up, always having music in the house, all different kinds of music, playing music, what little that I could, definitely has helped me in that, to kind of just
Yeah.
understand the whole picture and kind of to craft that whole experience for people, for sure.
What I've kind of found with people like you that are really good at playing piano and are musicians, but are very modest about it and don't ever put it out there, but work very heavy in production, is you guys have normally taken a back seat on the tech side, like y'all go in the shadows, because you value the music so much. Like y'all value it so much that y'all want to make sure that it's done really well. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? It's like you guys are the true unsung heroes that no one knows about, that make music and production what it really is.
I'd agree, because I super value how it's received, how people receive it. I think that you want to work with amazing musicians, but you want their true talent to not be obscured or taken less than because of how it's experienced by people. So that's how it sounds, how it's recorded, how it's staged, how it looks, and kind of all that is involved. So that's really something I'm so obsessed with and passionate about, is just the experience of music, and just
That's
kind of
good.
that full immersive
Yeah.
side of it.
Sure.
That's what I love.
That's great. Well, Matt, bring us up to speed how we got to the conversation of this.
How we got to today?
Yeah, today. I
Yeah.
mean, I just think it's interesting how it all kind of has formed.
Yeah. Well, I haven't met many people in my life that I really track with. You're one of them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
I appreciate that.
You've got the recorded proof now.
That's right. And I'll make sure this is on my
You
phone.
don't need to remind me. No, I'm
Maybe
joking.
this could be my phone. Maybe we could cut this out of the show or make it so that's my phone. My phone
ringback tone?
Yeah, ring.
Ring
so
tone.
when my phone, it just says, "Jimmy, I track with you."
I track with
Jimmy, I track with you.
Hold on.
Jimmy, I track with you.
Jimmy, I track with you.
I like it.
All right. Well, Drew's also the same way. I feel like from the moment that we met at West Georgia one night. We were doing something for an organization, and you showed up to help out with sound and production. Me and my wife were leading worship for it, and you just showed up to help. And ever since then, like anytime I needed something or needed help with something, you were just always in the trenches with me. Like, we built our relationship that way. And last week, when we did our show and we talked through, you were asking me about, leaving more of the mega church style, going more towards the local church, and how the local church is generally smaller in population.
Yeah.
Drew listened to that, and he hit me up and he said, Matt, he was like, I really feel like smaller churches need to know that they can win.
Yeah.
I
want to break right there. What's your definition of win? And I'm pointing to Drew there.
That's a great question, and I should have a rehearsed answer for that, but
we didn't rehearse anything. So
this is
right.
This is
so
real deal.
for me, in like leading my team on a Sunday, a win for us is to be prepared, and I think a lot of preparation comes with what you expect. So you expect for something to happen. You expect for people to show up who want to experience Jesus. A win for me, just kind of in the executional side of things, is to set yourself up to be able to enjoy what you're doing. If you go in and you're prepared, and everyone is informed, knows what to expect, they're well rehearsed, and everyone has kind of put all their tools where they need to be, then and I'm really just speaking to like a Sunday execution, but then it really sets you up to a place to enjoy serving.
Yeah,
and enjoy
I have
the
certainly been in
experience.
worship services and with the staff, everybody working up, and there was not a lot of joy.
Yeah,
It was tense. It was it was anxious. There was anxiety in the room. There was a thick layer of anxiety. There was some bad attitudes.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in those environments before.
So yeah, we always say at 3 Life, one of our things we throw around is if the goal for our production team is that no one should know that you're there, but everyone should feel the effects of what you do. And I think that plays a role in it as well. But for me, I just want our team to love what they do, love serving, and I think a win for that is setting yourself up to not be stressed out while you're serving. You should be able to worship alongside everyone else, and execute your craft to the best of your ability because you've made the preparations.
What about playing devil's advocate here? What about if you script every minute of the service?
Right.
Okay, at 17 after, this is when we go to this transition. At 21 and 21:30, this is when we go to this. I mean, when you script it to that point, and there are services that are scripted to that level, right? And so, pushing back on where is the role of the Holy Spirit and spontaneity of the Holy Spirit?
That was a great question, and I was thinking about that because I knew that would come up.
Are there any other questions you think will come up? Please tell me.
Maybe.
Now.
But that is something that I kind of pray through and walk through alongside our worship leaders and stuff, just kind of on a weekly basis.
Sure.
That's not really something that it's like, okay, this much programming is too much, this much is not enough. Like this amount of spontaneity is excessive, but we have to have this. There's not. I think it's a balance. Just being sensitive to the Holy Spirit in that environment and in that service. I will say that there's a lot of technical things that you can do that actually I've always heard it said like there's freedom in preparation. So we prepare to go off course.
Yeah.
So it's like if your teams are set up and they, especially like Matt can speak to it like from a musician's angle, when your band is prepared and they are familiar with the songs you're going into. You're familiar with the different progressions and what the options are. You can explore musically from that space. It definitely opens up all kinds of possibilities. So to answer your question, it's just something that kind of I explore weekly, and I always try and be sensitive to that. I never want to, buckle down on anything so hard that there's not room for that. But it's something that I think we prepare to be ready to execute wherever the service may go. So we're responding to what the Spirit wants to do in that gathering, not forcing it to go where we want to go.
Sure.
And I also think it's, I think in terms of Three Life, because full disclosure, I worked there for a year or two.
Plot twist.
For me, plot twist, dun dun dun. For me, the spontaneity generally always came with Josh.
That was amazing.
Yeah, so for me, it was.
Josh is the pastor.
Josh is the pastor.
So just be him being led by the Spirit
Yep.
and just kind of being
Yep.
guided.
So it was less about all of us as worship leaders being spontaneous and more about following his lead if he went spontaneous. I think sometimes when spontaneity is a thing, I think sometimes you might get too many chiefs and not enough Indians, and too many people might start trying to get spontaneous, and they think that's the win, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
now we're creating confusion,
Right, yeah.
Whereas sometimes maybe the spontaneity needs to be entrusted to one person.
Yeah, just because you're singing this particular song doesn't mean that the Lord has given you a 7
you
minute.
don't have the key to go on a 15-minute tangent. Yeah.
Maybe you haven't been given the keys to the city. I don't know. Maybe you just need to sing your song the way that you rehearsed it, because then there's trust factors. Because I think the spontaneity is a very pastoral thing.
That's good.
I do believe that.
That's good.
So I think that whoever does go in that direction needs to have the pastoral trust of the church.
Okay. So we went off on this win. What is a win? And the idea this week was that it's feasible, very feasible, for a smaller congregation to win, to be effective, to be used by the Lord to make a kingdom impact. I mean, this idea that bigger is better when it comes to attendance, that larger churches that have larger attendance than churches that have smaller attendance are better than that's really a myth in the kingdom.
Right, because you see, for lack of a better example, you can see someone that maybe who isn't used to having a lot of money, maybe get like a record deal, a sports contract, win the lottery, whatever, get a lot of money. They don't know what to do with that. They spend it all. They're back in the same boat, right? So for me, I don't think bigger's bad. I just think that if you're small, do what you're doing, but do it well. Yeah. Execute it well. Be intentional about what you're doing. Yeah. Don't try to copy other people just because they're bigger or they're quote unquote cooler. I think you just need to be extremely intentional about what you have.
Did you see the Carey Nieuwhof? For those who don't know, Carey Nieuwhof he's a pastor, but he's really a blogger.
He's a stud.
He's a man, and he wrote a blog last week on don't try to copy the megachurch. Did you see that blog?
I didn't see that blog. I didn't read it.
He just talked about be who you are. Don't try to mimic something that you're not, and play to your own strengths.
I think it's okay to use places as kind of like a starting point or a template. I use, when I'm writing music, I use certain artists or songs as kind of like a reference point to inspire me or that kind of thing. But I think when you're trying to be someone else, I believe that God made us unique for a reason. I think God made us all different for a reason. And I think that if God wanted all of us to be church A, He would have made us all the same. We would all have the same problems. We would all struggle with the same sins, but we don't. And our communities are affected and wrestle with different challenges.
That's good.
And I think that that's why it's important for us to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit and be who we are. So I know for a win for us at Noonan City is simplicity.
Yeah.
And in simplicity, we're able to do things really well.
Yeah.
So through simplicity, we're able to have excellence.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Why do you think there is a movement to smaller venues? And I'm specifically thinking of Stephen Furtick, with Elevation up in North Carolina. He's got multiple campuses, but I'm not thinking they're not seating. They don't seat 5,000 apiece. They're pretty. They seem. I've not been to one. I'm just basing this on pictures and video. They seem smaller.
Drew, you've been to Elevation, haven't you?
I've been to a couple different ones, yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty, because I've been in, worship experiences with 10 people and ones with 80,000 or whatever.
Right.
And I think I have, it's hard, for sure, it's definitely going to be harder to kind of craft that intimacy the larger the room. It's
Because that's what people they're looking for that.
that's what it want. Yeah, that's what it
think
always
that's-
is. And it's
that's
kind
one
of
the
from a.
hopes.
I always look at everything. I think I told you this yesterday at lunch, but I look at everything from the execution production standpoint.
Yeah.
So it's all right, what are the nuts and bolts of achieving this? And it's kind of like the bigger the environment, the less control I have on how I can make that space feel. If I have a room with 50 people in it, I can just about control every single element of how I want it to smell, look, taste, feel, everything. But I lose more and more of that the bigger the space is. Now, you do enter into, the bigger the space, you enter into more of that kind of corporate kind of thing, and the grandeur of it, which is where all your big conferences come into play.
Right.
Kind of the grandeur of it really becomes desirable, and I think that's awesome. That's a crazy awesome experience to be a part of. But from a kind of week-to-week standpoint, being able to control that environment and make it the most conducive to people encountering Jesus and creating a distraction-free sort of space for people to do that, I think that's probably the goal with doing that. And there's a bunch of conversations around that to where is that sweet spot to where and I think it's different for everybody. It's different for every experience and every ministry, but kind of that what is still intimate, but what also feels corporate in a way. Corporate in the sense of we're all doing this together, not in the sense of commercialized. I think that's just kind of something every church explores and finds.
That balance,
to where it still feels all right, we're all in this together. This is a big movement we're a part of, but we're also kind of intimately encountering God at the same time.
That's good. Well, we're coming up on a hard break, and when we come back, I want us to talk about what specifically can some churches begin doing. I mean, from practical standpoint, how do we take we're still considered a small church, Noonan City. How do coach us, come in and say, okay, here's steps that we can lead towards the win that we're looking for.
Sure.
Friends, you're listening to Faith Works. We'll be right back.
You've been around long enough to know good stuff when you hear it. That's why you're here now. Classic Hits, WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key.
Premier Roof in Peachtree City is Metro Atlanta's residential and commercial roofing specialist. Free estimate. Premier Roofing works to make sure insurance companies pay for your new roof. Contact Kyle at 770-298-4741. Premier Roofing.
At Newlink, WOW, local matters. Local keeps our families and businesses thriving. WOW takes pride in serving the Noonan and Peachtree City communities and supporting Coweta County charities and events. For the fastest local internet, call 770-683-1931 and get up to 100 megs of speed for $29.99 a month. Lock in this price, save for the whole year. It's a great value that locals love.
Join us here, live from Noonan, Georgia, as we present the Health, Happiness, and Harmony Hour, every Wednesday from 10 to 11. I'm your host, Dr. Lewis Boynton. Please join us each week as we have new guests and talk about topics related to the psychological world. We're hoping that you will find interesting and helpful topics that will help you have more health, happiness, and harmony in your life. Join us every Wednesday from 10 to 11 at 99.1 WQEE Rock and Roll Radio.
The Warren Law Office, 22 East Broad Street in Noonan, can help you with personal injury, family law, criminal defense, and Mr. Warren is a trial attorney on the federal, state, and city level. 770-251-1289. Warren Law Office.
Tune in the second and fourth Thursday each month for Know Your Rights. I'm your host, Charles Cobble, and we'll discuss your rights and have plenty of information on what those rights are. Every second and fourth Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on WQEE 99.1 FM.
Ever dreamed of being a radio DJ or hosting your own show? Now here's your chance. WQEE 99 Rock the Key is giving you an opportunity to host your own show. If you'd like to get your advertising message across the thousands of listeners throughout the area, here's your chance. Hosting your own show is the way to do it. Perfect for attorneys, realtors, churches, sports talk shows, and more. Contact 678-673-6318 for further information. Host your own show.
Hey, I'm Jimmy Ellison. I'm the pastor here at Noonan City Church. I want to thank you. You'll find as you walk through that we focus on three areas primarily. One is worship, small groups, and local missions. And our purpose is transforming lives for Jesus' sake, helping individuals experience that transformation. And we use these three areas, worship, small groups, and local missions, to help individuals experience that. So you'll get a sense of who Noonan City Church is, and I hope that you'll come and worship with us soon. Take care, and God bless.
Around long enough to remember getting up to turn the channels on the TV? That's classic. Classic hits. WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key.
Welcome back to Faith Works. This is Jimmy Ellison, and we're talking to Drew Middlebrooks and Matt Morris. And Matt, Drew, before we go any further, I realized, tell us briefly what you do at 3 Life that got you into this consulting. You're working with churches, helping churches discover the wind, but you're employed at 3 Life. Share with us a little bit about that before we get rolling.
Lucky enough to be the production manager at 3 Life Church.
Which means?
So that basically means that I kind of, on a Sunday morning, am in charge of everything that happens in the auditorium. So I work super closely with our worship leaders and band director, and just kind of to craft and organize that experience on Sunday morning.
So are you running anything on Sundays?
Typically my Sunday morning role 9 times out of 10 is I'm acting both as a producer, so kind of directing the flow of the service, talking to our MD and the rest of our tech team. And then I usually am a lighting op as well. That's kind of, lighting is my,
what's an MD?
Music director. So he's like, your music director is like quarterbacking the band, kind of, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
Typically that's different from your worship leader. So you've got your worship leader up front leading the room, and then sometimes next time you're at church, you may see a guy standing in the back playing maybe keys or rhythm guitar or something, and he'll be talking in a microphone and you won't hear anything. So he's typically talking to the rest of the band and kind of driving.
It's coming through their ears.
He's generally reminding us that we're not playing the right chords.
Is that what that means?
Yeah. Exactly.
Hey, I want to know who's in charge of the haze machine.
That's me.
Is there like a button you press that says? How does that work?
So we could sit here and talk for 3 hours about haze.
Is it that big of a, I mean, is there really an industry, a haze?
It is,
machine
because
industry?
if you do it wrong, you might as well not do it at all. So it is an absolute craft to get in there and.
So what you're saying is Jimmy has seen it done wrong a lot.
Yeah, if you've been in a room and you're like, wow, it's really hazy in here, they probably weren't doing it right.
Well, I'm not. This church will go unnamed. The pastor and I, one staff person on the church and I were talking. They said they got the haze. Something went wrong, and the water sprinkler system kicked in.
No. Well, so
that's not good. I'm just telling Ryan.
That's not a win.
That's not what. That's not a win.
That's
not a win.
True
The sprinkler
story.
system.
One of the churches that I worked at for a while put the shower caps.
Shower
They
caps.
put
Yeah.
shower caps over the fire detectors.
To catch the water, huh?
No, to keep them from picking up the haze.
Oh.
Heard of that. It sounds crafty.
It sounds highly illegal.
Yeah, I don't know if the fire marshal would appreciate that.
I'm just saying, that's a reality.
Yes, I understand. Okay, so you do this
But yes, I'm in charge of the haze.
So how did you branch out? How did you branch out, Drew, and begin consulting with smaller congregations, teaching them the win? How did that whole process evolve?
So kind of to back up a little bit, when I, back in 2013, 2012/2013, I was lucky enough to be on the kind of launch team for 3 Life when we first started. So we're only about 6-7 years old.
Okay.
And in doing that, so we had no money. People would be like, so what's your production budget? And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. That doesn't exist. And so back then,
I can totally relate.
Yeah, and so back then, I kind of, I guess, appointed myself to figure out kind of how to create a quality experience, kind of quality visuals and sound and everything on really no budget. And kind of what I began to discover is that I could take a lot of these applications I was seeing from really successful productions, be it in church or whatever it was, and I could kind of apply that to what I did have in my box. So it's like, okay, I may not have these $10,000 lights, but I do have these little $300 lights, and I can make these little lights move exactly the same as that big one can. And I can kind of find different ways, and I'm lucky I've been kind of crafty my whole life, so I'm kind of comfortable with construction and fabrication and that kind of thing. So kind of taking these things and basically just creating knockoff versions almost. So I would custom build light fixtures that looked the same as these fixtures that were 10 times the price.
But what it sounds like to me is it's more about you didn't go, I won't be able to do anything well until I can spend $10,000. You went,
yeah.
I can do this well with $300 lights.
Well, what do I currently have?
Right.
Yeah.
And
What assets
do I currently have? And I can do that well.
Yeah.
Right.
What can I use? Yeah.
Yeah, and so really started to build this mentality of not focusing on the tools or the product, but really focusing on the application.
Yeah, I think that is so, because it doesn't matter how large. You can give it your best. You can do your best in preparation and execution. Doesn't take money to be on time. It doesn't take money to do. I mean, yeah.
I mean, when it comes down to you see artists, you know that real artist when you see them. You know what I'm saying? And they can have a cheap guitar, but you wouldn't know it because when you see them perform, you're like,
they're the real deal.
Yeah.
Right? Like you just know that they're the real deal.
Yeah.
And it's because of their mindset. It's because of how they walk up to what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's huge. And kind of over that, just began to build relationships kind of with a lot of people who were in the same boat as me, which turns out to be a lot of people that are kind of in this, a lot of people in young churches with not a lot of money to throw around. And in a way, I think that's a great place to be because it really kind of forces some innovative thinking on your part and kind of forces you to, you can't just throw money at every problem. And that's what I tell our team, that a lot of times people are like, oh, we got to be more creative. And creativity is not just an artistic approach. Creativity, because people think, oh, I want to come up with something creative. Well, and normally that's seen as like, oh, a creative video or a creative art piece or creative, some kind of like, whatever it may be. But creativity is in how we solve problems. It's in how we look at situations. It's in how we use the tools that we do have. And I think that's more creativity kind of in the day-to-day grind of what we do.
So when have you worked with the church and you gave them that advice and they put it into practice? Have you got some stories from a practical standpoint how it's worked?
So kind of back up, I listened to you and Matthew's talk last week, and it really got me thinking. And I think it's so perfect that y'all had y'all's conversation before today, because y'all really talked a lot about music and kind of the band side of things and how it works with musicians and some different things like that. And it got me thinking how nowadays in the modern church that production and band relationship is so seamless, and it's kind of really the same.
Yeah.
Two horns on the same goat kind of thing.
Yeah. Two horns on the same goat. Write that down. That's a quote.
I need a reference for you. But through kind of building up things at 3 Life and making a lot of friends, relationships, people kind of in the same boat, started to have a lot of conversations and have been lucky enough over the years to work with a lot of mostly kind of smaller churches, and not even young churches, but a lot of churches that are just kind of trying to reevaluate the way they do things, be a little bit more relevant in their worship experience. And they would bring me in and they'd have all kinds of technical questions. And the more that I talked to people and the more conversations I began to have, I learned that really initially they may ask me a few questions, but really I had nothing to offer them technically other than what I just learned on YouTube, the same that they could.
Right.
So there's not really any magic in technical knowledge, but what I did find that I was able to impart on people was just a lot of like the mentality of crafting a worship experience, and why programming a certain lighting cue this way is distracting, and why mixing something a certain way or using a certain type of audio effect maybe is distracting and not conducive to what we're trying to do. And it's funny because I'll go into these places and they're like, okay, we're trying to use more lighting, more aggressive sound applications, or kind of whatever it may be, and then come in and really teaching them that actually kind of less is more when it comes to how you're programming these things. And so I think, and I hope that I've been lucky enough to leave other people in my same position with kind of the knowledge that it's really our job is just to create the atmosphere for people to encounter Jesus.
Right.
And I think there's some great tools that we have. Some tools are more expensive than others. But that's really the goal, is to go in and show people, look, this is how we do things that are not distracting. They're supportive to the word that's being brought. They're supportive to the music that's being sung. And all we're really doing is just amplifying the message that's coming from the Holy Spirit and the message that's coming off stage. So that's really been my goal along the way, is just to, if I can give you some technical knowledge, great. And I love talking shop and talking, like I said, we can sit here and talk about haze for the rest of our lives.
Are there two different types of haze?
There's all different types of haze. So, disclaimer: I've spent years discovering this. So eventually I've landed on what they call oil-based haze.
Oil-based.
Yeah, and I swear,
Like anointing oil-based or just oil-based?
If it makes you feel better, yeah, you can go out there.
Is it like what's the organic oil stuff that people sell?
I think
is it like essential oils?
I think it's like, essentially it's almost the same as like baby oil, like argan oil. Isn't that what it's
So
called?
you can make it smell like
at the core.
I love the baby nighttime.
I haven't dabbled in the scent, but I've heard.
I remember
about it.
that.
I mean,
Now that mine are 25 and 22.
mine's 16 months old, so like we still have it.
You're still in the thick of it. But yes, there's all different kinds of haze. But yeah, I love talking shop. I love talking about the tech side of things because those are the tools that we use. I'm a tool guy anyway. I was a mechanic for years before I was...
Really?
Yeah, so kind of fun fact about me. So when I started 3 Life in 2013, I didn't actually come on staff until about 2 years ago.
Okay.
So I was serving kind of in the same capacity I am now, but just as a volunteer. And along that whole path, I was kind of like an aftermarket automotive mechanic. Worked at Trucks and Stuff in the Grange, worked at Audio Trends on the Grange. And what's weird is God really, I see it now. At the time, I was kind of frustrating, but I see it now. God really used that season of my life to give me so many tools. I'm probably pride myself in being a really good electronic kind of troubleshooter and troubleshooting.
Sure, because that's what you do when you fix, you
But
troubleshoot.
that's what I learned working on, these hoopty stereo cars when I was 20 years old, learning how to track down issues. And then being a mechanic and learning how to do a lot of fabrication type things. And there's a lot of problems. So everything we did was aftermarket. So it wasn't going in and little old lady's alternator goes out, we swapped it out. Everything we did was custom, fabricated, aftermarket. There's really not a manual on how to do a lot of that kind of stuff.
You figure it out.
You just have to figure out how to do it.
Figure it out with what you have. I mean, that's
and
what you do.
It's kind of the mantra of what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
So,
Can I ask a question?
please.
Yesterday at lunch, you mentioned something, and I'd love to kind of hear you expand on it. You talked about how a lot of times churches are trying to be relevant, and they get all these toys, like these lights and all this stuff, but they don't know how to use it, or maybe they didn't need to get it in the first place. So maybe it's like a culture standpoint. Maybe it's an operator thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes...
Sorry, I know we just...
No, that's fine. That's a good question.
I think that goes... So I see that a lot. I go into a lot of churches, and unfortunately, the pattern I see a lot is church has been around for 50 years, we'll say. Well, then here recently they decide, okay, we're kind of behind the times in how we execute things technically. These churches have a bunch of money in the bank. They hire an integrator, like a technical integrator, which is someone who comes in and kind of designs and installs a AV system for a church. They hire some big integrator. This church has millions of dollars in the bank. The integrator comes in and just scalps them on $1 million install and then leaves them for dead.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of stuck with some really, really capable tools and some really great equipment, but they don't really have they're not used to executing an experience in that style. So not only do they not really understand, they don't really understand the mentality of how to use these tools, but then on the technical side, they don't know how the knobs and buttons work either. So I've been lucky enough to kind of go into that situation a lot of times and show people, and they think, oh, we got to change this and that. And it's like, no. You actually probably have, and this is whether you've had that crazy integrator situation before or you're just whatever your kind of situation may be, you probably are more equipped than you think you are.
Yeah.
And it's about getting, and if you get to the place where you're getting the absolute maximum potential out of the gear and the tools that you do have, you'll be surprised kind of what you can do, and you can.
What you already have. I mean,
right. Yeah, you're probably in the
on
position
hand.
to craft a much better experience than you think you are, just with a little bit of research and training and.
Which pastors love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we don't have to spend any more money. Well, you got what you need.
I mean, I had a church. I had a church recently I was consulting for that told me that their production director literally told them that if they didn't do this $30,000 install, that musicians wouldn't come play for them. And it really broke my heart, because I looked at the elders and I just said, that's not true. I was like, what's going to make musicians come and play for you is how you treat them. It's the experience that you provide for them. Are you pastoring those musicians, and are you leading them closer to Jesus, and are you providing that kind of an experience? And I really do believe that's the case in a lot of churches. Is it's not that we need to add more lights or more haze or more. I'm indifferent on haze. I'm indifferent. I'm Switzerland, but I think that it's more about, like, how are we being Jesus?
Yes. Are we creating an authentic experience for people to encounter the living Lord?
Yeah.
I mean, I think as a pastor, that's what I want for our church, and I think most pastors would agree. I mean, and everybody agrees. And you want to come and encounter God. Yeah. That's what you want to do when you come, and these are all tools for us.
Yeah. And going back to your original thing, you talked about copying churches. It's not authentic if you're trying to copy somebody else.
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest hiccups with trying to be the next whatever church,
right?
Elevation or what? I mean, any of them. You have to be who God has created you to be.
I had a church recently say that they wanted to incorporate more hymns.
Yeah,
and
sure.
They said that the guy that left, so I got brought in to kind of transition them in between some staff transitions, and kind of like an interim deal, and they wanted more hymns, and the guy before them told them that hymns were not relevant, and that they were ineffective. And I think
he said hymns were ineffective.
That's correct.
Probably really bad at presenting.
Bless his heart.
Yeah, I told him that they should probably pray for him because he might not be saved. But no, I'm joking. I didn't say that.
I don't think you're joking.
I probably did say it, but for me, I think it's those kind of things. It's doing the things that we do in production. To create the worship experience for someone to walk in the doors, to experience Jesus, I believe needs to come from a place of conviction on how we do it. Like you talked about, like programming lights in a certain way that's not distracting. Like that's got to come from a place that's convicting. The song selections, too much haze, no haze, whatever. It's got to be rooted in their conviction on what God has called us to in our community, in this season, in this time. And if we're just trying to be church down the street, then I just really think that we're doing our communities an injustice.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Sure. And we're also putting some pressure on our volunteers to be people that they're not.
Well, guys, you're not going to believe this, but our time is up. Man, Ryan, that may have been the fastest show ever. A lot of moved quickly.
We need to do a part 2.
We do need to do a part 2 because I still have some more questions on
haze.
No more haze questions.
Okay.
But but really going into, because there's going to be folks who are listening who are thinking, we've got tools in our local church right now. How do we use what we have for the quote the win and to help people engage with the Lord? Mm-hmm. I mean there's that. Okay, we want to be more effective in connecting people to Jesus. I mean that's the big question.
I'm down for part 2 if you're down for part
2. We'll put that on the calendar, guys. Hey, thank y'all for being here today. And
I loved hearing Drew's story. I'm ready for Judgment Journey.
Yeah, we'll go.
It's coming up.
Sure.
It's coming up in a couple of weeks.
Happening. Yeah, so we'll go check it out.
It is already happening?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Well, friends, listen, you have listened to FaithWorks. We are so glad you tuned in today. We'll be here next week. Take care, and God bless.
Thanks for tuning in to Faith Works with Pastor Jimmy Ellison from Noonan City Church. Tune back in here next week for another edition of Faith Works.